as they stand in lines, as they continue to go, put on the boots and go to foreign countries and represent our country in a way that can't nobody else do. Oh Lord, we just thank you. We thank you for everything you say and everything you do, all the promises you have in your book. And we pray that all you say and do in the last and final day no longer flows through our veins, but air no longer flows through our lungs. We be able to come to us and say, well done, thy good and faithful servant. This is your servant's most humble prayer this morning. In His holy, most precious name. Amen.
Well, praise the Lord, everybody. Hallelujah. I want to thank you for that awesome prayer. God bless you for that. Well, my charge is to do
so one of y'all need to go live.
So for those that are here, those that are tuned in, we want to say welcome to our third financial empowerment, and we want to thank Sister TK these things to us and bringing awareness. How many know that being financially astute is kingdom? It's a kingdom principle, and so you can't have too many. You can't have too many financial empowerments, you know. And I thank God for that. And this one in particular is for the veterans. And I myself, I am a veteran. A veteran of 30 years, and I did 30 years in the military, and I remember particularly when I on my last day being in the military, on that very next day, I was just I've been out in the military now for 5 years. I'm still learning about the things that are available to veterans. And I'm also finding that there are so many veterans that are clueless.
It ain't picking up nobody
all the things that are available.
So you're not lying.
So in that, I know we have some awesome speakers that's going to bring some awareness to us.
And they started before when I told them I wasn't ready. They started, so I have to go look like that. There's no picture that's going to show up on there.
All we have to do is tap into it. So I thank you. I welcome you. So I pray that everybody is blessed today. Amen. Amen.
After 10 minutes of not starting, it deletes the whole thing if you don't go live. So it had to go live. So that's all they're saying. It's not camera. Right. It's not picking up anybody's phone.
So next we have Minister Quincy McCall.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. So my name is Quincy McCall. And first of all, good morning, and thank you, TK, for the invitation. So I'm just going to do a brief introduction, then I'm going to dive into the information that I have. I have a lot of information. So I'm Quincy McCall, and I'm the director of the Abraham Lincoln National Cemetery, which is located in Elwood, Illinois, which is about 45 minutes south of Chicago. So I've been with the National Cemetery Administration, which I will refer to later as NCA, since 1999. So I started out processing applications for headstones and markers in private cemeteries. And my supervisor saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And he strongly encouraged me to get into the director intern program. So I entered the director intern program in 2002. I trained for a year at Leavenworth National Cemetery. After that, I was assigned to Quantico National Cemetery. After that, I was moved to Barrancas National Cemetery, which is in Pensacola, Florida. I was at Wood National Cemetery, which is in Milwaukee. And then in about 2007, I was moved to Alabama, which is where I had the honor and the privilege of opening and being the first director for the Alabama National Cemetery. And I stayed there for 9 years, and that's where I have some of the greatest memories and fondest times and of my career was being in Alabama, and I still miss Alabama every day. I've been in Illinois now for October will be 4 years, and I am also an Army veteran. So I will get into my presentation. So the mission of the National Cemetery Administration is to honor veterans with a final resting place in national shrines, and with lasting tributes that commemorate their service to our nations. Currently, we have 55 national cemeteries located throughout the United States and also in Puerto Rico. So some of the burial benefits, and everything that I'm going to explain to you today is absolutely free. It is of no cost to the veteran and or eligible family members. So what are some of the things that we offer at a national cemetery? So the burial benefits will include a gravesite. It will include the opening and closing. We're going to maintain that gravesite forever and forever. You're going to be provided a headstone, marker, or niche cover. You will have use of our facilities to have a committal service. The family is presented a Presidential Memorial Certificate, which we call the PMC, at the time of the service. The veteran's family will receive a burial flag and military honors, which are arranged through the funeral home. So how do you tap into these benefits? Who are eligible for these benefits? Most veterans are eligible to be buried in a national cemetery as long as they served on active duty and have an honorable discharge. Now, after 1980, 1981, the criteria changed and you have to serve 24 consecutive months and have an honorable discharge. But for the most part, most veterans will be eligible for burial in a national cemetery. And later on, I will explain to you the process for those veterans that may not know if they are eligible or not, because there are some veterans that may not be eligible, but I will explain that process. So also, the veteran's spouse can be buried at the cemetery, minor children under 21. If you have a child that is 23 that is going to school to get their education, an approved institution of education, they are eligible to be buried in National Cemetery. Then there's another category that I will talk about a little more in depth, and it's called the adult dependent. An adult dependent is any unmarried adult child with disabilities that happened prior to the age of 21. And I will explain that further down in the presentation. So now you know that most veterans can be buried in National Cemetery. It costs you absolutely nothing. Your spouse, some of your children, minor, and if you have an adult dependent child, can be buried in National Cemetery. So what happens at the time of death for a veteran and spouse or eligible family member? What happens is you're going to take that veteran's DD-214 or their military discharge paperwork to the funeral director that you're working with. You're going to give that information to the funeral director, and you're going to tell the funeral director, I want my husband, wife, uncle, brother, cousin, sister, daughter, mom buried at XYZ National Cemetery. The funeral director will then take that information. They will then fax that information to our scheduling center in St. Louis. It's a centralized location that schedules for all 155 national cemeteries. They'll fax that information in. A few minutes later, they're going to pick up that phone. They're going to call. I just faxed paperwork in, a DD-214 for Mr. John Doe that would like to be buried at XYZ National Cemetery. The funeral director will then make the arrangements with the family. Most cemeteries, we bury Monday through Friday. Mondays and Fridays are the busier days in most national cemeteries. So you go to the funeral, someone dies, and it's very emotional. You can't find that DD-214. You know, you've seen it somewhere in the past. You know, daddy, you know, mama, you know, uncle, cousin, they served in the military, but you can't find that DD-214. So what do you do? In the case, if the veteran or the spouse has already passed, you're just going to go straight to that funeral home. You're going to let them know, hey, my dad was a veteran, but I can't find his DD-214. That funeral director will then pick up that phone. They will then call the scheduling center in St. Louis, give them as much information as they can. And if they're immediately able to find that information, they can then schedule that burial. But if not, it goes over to, there's a group of people in St. Louis, all they do is verify eligibility. That is their job. So they will then go to the National Archives, they will go to the FBI, they will go through all these different agencies in order to get that information so that that veteran, spouse, or child can be buried. So what I try to encourage every veteran to do, if you do not know where your DD-214 is, do it now so that your family does not have that pressure and that stress of trying to find that DD-214. So, and the way that you do that, if you if you don't have your DD 214 now, you're just going to simply go to www.archives.gov. When you go there, there's going to be about 5 screens across the top, links. And the second one is called Veteran Service Records. You will click on that and just follow the instructions. Now, prior to COVID, a year or so ago, it would probably take, depending on the veteran and when you were in, maybe 30 days. I think that's how long it took to get mine. But now the National Archives, their process has kind of slowed down because of COVID, and I don't believe everybody is back to work yet. So it takes a little bit longer. So that's why I can't stress enough. If you're a veteran, you're listening to me and you don't have your DD 214, do it now, because it takes a lot of stress and pressure off of your family. Some funeral homes are very good about picking up that phone and calling, and some you actually have to struggle to get them to do that. So if you can do that now to take the stress off of your family at the time of your death or the death of someone that is eligible to be buried in National Cemetery, because they just need that veteran's DD 214 to bury the spouse or the minor child or the adult dependent. So earlier I alluded to most veterans can be buried in National Cemetery, as long as you have an honorable discharge, you served on active duty. Well, there are some categories, like some of our National Guard and some of our reservists, and that there's long criteria, so I didn't want to try to explain all that. So normally what I do is for my National Guard, my reservists, and if you didn't serve 24 consecutive months, there's a program that we had that started probably about maybe 5 or 6 years ago, and it's called Pre-Need Burial Determination. And so many people would like to know in advance whether or not they're eligible for burial in National Cemetery. So to assist with that process, the VA launched the Pre-Need program. And so basically what that is that the veteran will fill out a form, and it's a VA form 40-10007, and it's called the application for pre-need determination for eligibility for burial in National Cemetery. They will then send a copy of the DD 214. All of that information goes to the scheduling center or the eligibility center in St. Louis. Usually within about 90 to 120 days or so, you should receive a response on whether or not you're eligible to be buried in National Cemetery. Okay. I alluded to adult dependent children earlier. That is a special category that a lot of veterans and spouses don't even know that they're eligible for. So let's say you have a child that was born with cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and of course that was before the age of 21. They are eligible to be buried with the veteran and the spouse. So basically what's needed is there is documentation that's going to be needed from the family physician stating that prior to the age of 21, Johnny Doe became disabled because of a mental physical disability, and they usually list out that mental physical disability. That is then, and we need to know that at the time of death of either that veteran or that spouse. A lot of times people will wait and tell us after both of them are gone on, and that way we can make sure that we are able to accommodate as far as that gravesite, how many people can go in there. So at the time of death, the mom or dad, when they're calling the scheduling center, they're going to ask, are there any adult dependent children? If they are any adult dependent children, they need to know at that time so the cemeteries again can then accommodate for that additional burial in the future. If you have 2 veterans that are married, they are entitled to their own grave sites. Again, when you're at the funeral home, if there are 2 veterans, then you would simply say that and the funeral homes may not even know to ask. And that's why I'm putting this information out. If there are 2 veterans, if you want to be buried in your own separate grave site, we need to know that ahead of time. If not, they'll be buried in the same grave site. And we have gotten requests after it's been done, and that's kind of another process that you have to go through. So the more that we know up front at the cemetery, the better it is for everybody. So veterans, 2 veterans are entitled to their own grave sites. And then we have a lot of, it's probably like 50-50. They want to be together. Okay. So let's say I told you all this information and you're like, well, you know what? All the National Cemetery is fine and dandy. Yeah, it's beautiful, all this stuff, but I want to be in a private cemetery with my grandma and the rest of my family because we have a family plot. So in those instances, the veteran is entitled to some benefits. And so some of those benefits are going to be military honors, the burial flag, Presidential Memorial Certificate, headstone mark or niche cover, or a medallion in lieu of a headstone. And so basically what that medallion is, let's say you have a private headstone that's already there. They just have to inscribe the information. And the family, you're not getting a government headstone. There's a medallion for each branch of service that can be affixed to that headstone or that marker. The other thing is we started about maybe a year or so ago, probably it's like 2019, we started the Veterans Legacy Memorial. And so what that is the first website, that a digital platform dedicated entirely to the memory of the more than 3.7 million veterans that are buried in VA national cemeteries. And so it's individual pages for those veterans. And so to get more information about that page or about anything that I've said, the website is www.cem.va.gov. There is a plethora of information on that website, stuff that I didn't talk about, but it's a lot of stuff on that website. And of course, if you require more information about anything I said, or if you want further information about anything I said, you can contact the nearest national cemetery and the staff there will assist you. Or if you would like to speak to me, you are more than welcome to contact me. My direct phone number is 815-423-9958, or you can email me. If you email me, you'll probably get a faster response because I'm attached to my iPhone. And so I respond even on the weekend if you were to email, except for this weekend because I left it at home. But my email address is Quincy, and that's QUINCY.whitehead@va.gov. So does anybody have any questions? Because I put out a lot of information. Okay.
Go ahead. We
Well,
have a question.
Okay.
Okay, could you go back over what you said about the dependent? Is it just dependents who are who has physical and mental disability, or dependents under the age of 21?
Right. So minor children under the age of 21 can be buried in National Cemetery. 23 if they're in an accredited university college, they can be buried in National Cemetery. But the reason why I pulled out the adult dependent is because a lot of times folks don't realize that their child that was born with a disability can be buried in National Cemetery. And that's becoming like a bigger, we're seeing that's like a big trend right now. It's like mom and dad are passed away and then brother and sister are still here with Johnny, and they did not know that Johnny could be buried with their parents. Any other questions?
Yes, ma'am. I have a question.
Okay.
And this is in reference to your reservists for the reservists and National Guard members. You have made mention earlier, because I know a lot of reservists and National Guardsmen who may not have done actually active duty other than annual training or whatever, and they did not do the whole 20 years that they did do the 20. Okay, and you made mention about the, you can get your DD-214 from the National Archives. Where would reservists and National Guardsmen, if they can't find their discharge orders, because see, they don't get a DD-214.
Correct.
Where do you get that information?
Okay, so when you go to the National Archives, there is actually a form, and I forgot to write down that form number. It should be in the front of my head, but there is actually a form number where you can request your DD-214, whichever branch. I think it's on page 3. At the bottom of page 3, it'll say, if you were in the United States Army in 1901 to 1953, you're going to send it here. If you're in the Air National Guard, you're going to send it here. So it's about, I want to say it's about 14 or 15 different locations. So on that form, and I'm sorry I did not write that number down, but if you go to the www.archives and you go to Veteran Service Records and you pull the application to request the DD-214 on, I believe it's the third page, it's going to list the addresses that you are going to send off to get that, the paperwork for that veteran.
Okay, that's good. That's good information, because I know a lot of veterans, they just did not even follow through because they got to that part where, say, for their DD-214, and they know that they did not have a DD-214. But from my understanding, what you're saying, so that I can help them, is that they still go to that form, fill that out, and just and it will be directed to where it needs to go. Is that correct?
That is correct. And then what some of them can do too is you can go to, like, I know when I was in Alabama, I'm trying to remember where the National Guard headquarters is located. A lot of them would go straight to the National Guard headquarters and request it. In Montgomery, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Okay, so that's another option. Any other questions?
No, ma'am, I think that's it.
Okay, well, as always, I was telling TK before, this is the first time I've done 100 outreaches, over 100. This is the first time I ever did one in my car in a Sam's parking lot, but I will do whatever I need to do to get the information out. So I truly appreciate this opportunity to be able to talk about what it is that I love to do. And again, if you need additional information, TK can get in touch with me, and I will do my best to get those answers that you need.
Thank you so much, Quincy. We really appreciate you.
You're welcome. Thank you for reaching out to me. I appreciate you.
Yes, and I need you to come back to Alabama soon.
Look, I'm trying to trust and believe. I'm trying to. Somebody need to leave for me to come back.
Okay, who want me to get rid of?
Look, I'll text you.
Thank you.
All righty. Thank you. And thank you to Pastor Valentine. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you again. Up next,
okay,
Reverend Monty Royster. He's going to be speaking on transitioning to civilian life and also mental health. That is a very, very strong thing, because a lot of people do not know how to transition from being get up at this time, do this, do this, do this, and do this. People can't transfer from that structure coming back out to civilians that do and say whatever. So we're going to let him speak on that, tell us everything that he knows, share some good information with us.
Praise the Lord, everybody. Come on, we thank God for this platform. We thank God for Bishop Valentine and his absence. We thank God to the First Lady. We thank God for life-changing, for giving us this platform to be able to just to give some information to our veterans. And this was about, I believe this says that information is always power. Matter of fact, I read somewhere in the Bible, it says that our people fail and perish because of lack of knowledge. And so we thank God for the platform that we have been given today just to talk about the military. Wonderful information. I'm telling you, wonderful information. I know this, I hope they're recording this, because we can put this back out and play this, hit rewind and share with so many of our veterans. This becomes significantly important because, like, so often they were saying that when you're in the military and you don't understand, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and so we thank God. So I want to talk about the mental health aspect of the transition part of being in the military. 27 years, the Army told me what to eat, when to wake up, when to go, when to leave my family, what to say, what not to say, how to walk, how to talk, and how to sleep, when to wake up, and so forth. Y'all got the picture. I did that for 27 years. So, and all of a sudden you've become conditioned to only doing what they've told you to do. And one of the things that we learn in the military is when you first went into the military, going into basic training, the first thing they did was they stripped you down from everything that you knew and to build you back up. And you conform, and they built you to what they wanted you to be. And you did that for however many long, how many hour time you served, and that's on the things you've known. Now, let me just say that it is a small percentage, only 1% of the U.S. population. This is on as early as July the 13th, 2020. 1% of people, U.S. citizens, join the military. 1%. This is a small percentage, and the percentage goes even smaller. That only 54.3 of those individuals end up retiring, right? And so, even in that small percentage, if you have been in the military for several years, there's always a thing of how do I transition? How do I get back to normal? They have platforms in the military called Soldiers for Life. You've probably heard of it, and you can look at it and register. They have Wounded Warrior projects. You can also look to that. And I throw that information out for you to the Wounded Warrior Project. And I know Brother Gaddis is coming up with military benefits, and I can't wait to hear that part also, because there are so many benefits out there for soldiers. We just got to know how to tap into it. But one of the things we also fail to understand and really get the help that where we need is learning how to transition, learning how to take care of ourselves. Can I just say that there's only one you? There's only one you. And if you don't know, or you fail to take care of you, then you'll suffer and deal with some things that unnecessarily that you may deal with. A lot of us deal with PTSD. Everybody thinks that one of the misnotions is that because if I did not go to war, or if I did not go serve in combat, I don't qualify, or I don't have PTSD. Well, let me just say that is not true. PTSD, it comes in a different ways of forms that affects you just being in the military. I find myself, how many military vets find themselves eating fast? Just something, it affects your mental health, it affects your digestive system, because the military told me, taste it later. They told me to eat it and taste it later. All right, eat it, swallow, and get moving, and you'll taste it later. And that was just the way of life. And so now we look at how do we transition from getting out of the uniform, being a civilian, because one of the first transitions that we realize is that everybody is not in the 1%, and everybody don't understand what you've been through and what you have gone through. And so there you find yourself, when you find, the first thing we find ourselves is it's a period of isolation. That's the first period you find when you transition out of the military, whether you retire, whether you did 2 days, whether you did 3 years, you find it a period of isolation, because the military is so structured, and the military has been around for a lot of years. So when it didn't change when you decided to join. They don't conform to you, you conform to them. And so it's so structured. Everything is driven by time. Everything is driven by a certain way, standards and regulations and things that we have to uphold. And so what happens is that the first time when we get out, we find ourselves in a period of isolation, and we find ourselves where it seems like nobody understands us, and it's like only the 1% that I was in with, and nobody else has been in the 1%. I told you at the beginning, only 1% join. So what happens is you find yourself, the minute you jump out of the uniform, the minute you get out of the uniform, you find yourself by yourself. And then the make matters worse is you go to get help and nobody understands. People say that they understand or can imagine, but then if you're not in that 1% with me, you fully don't understand what I just experienced, whether it was 1 year, 20 years, 18 years, or whatever. And so what happens is we become isolated. And we try to deal with things on our own, and then therefore it takes a toll on our health. It takes a toll on anxieties that we may deal with. It takes a toll on relationships that we may have with our significant other or our partner. And it takes a significant change because dealing with our children. So if we understand something out of everything that we've been going through, we have to understand ourselves, and we must understand that period of isolation and be able to, watch this, we have to be able to recognize that and be able to do something about it. Because 80 to 90% of people, we've been conditioned to tell ourselves the first mistake we tell ourselves is, this is it. I'm okay. I'm okay. And we fail to recognize that we have issues and there's something that needs to be done to help us in the transition process, to help us dealing with these periods of isolation, to help us transition, make it a smooth transition from the military to not only to just throw all out what I've learned, because you telling me something that I've been conditioned to do for 25, 30 years, now all of a sudden, well, you're not in the military no more. You got to change. And now you're trying to tell me to try to change into something else. That's very difficult, one, at my age. If you're over 35 years old, it becomes a issue because we have been conditioned, and trying to get somebody to change. You ever heard somebody say, they just set in their ways? Yeah, because you're trying to tell somebody at the age of 65 to go to bed at 11 o'clock or do something. They've been conditioned to do something for a very long time. That transition becomes difficult. That transition. So the first thing we understand is the period of isolation, but then we understand that we must recognize issues and problems that we have endured, and then get help about those things. And so one of the first things I recommend, because when they were talking to me about the transition process, and let me just say, I too suffer from PTSD. I suffer from PTSD, had 9 deployments, and it's just like nobody really knows how each situation is gonna affect you. You can be out here and you can be in a horrific situation. You really just don't know what kind of impact that's gonna have on your life. How many times you're gonna think about things, how often is it going to reshape your things. And so having said that, the first thing in my transition and prepare myself, they said that you have to have a safe platform to be able to talk to and discuss your issues. So often, once again, we say that life is moving on and I'm just going to deal with it and I'm going to move on. And we don't create, or we're not given a safe platform to be able to be transparent. We was talking about it earlier about being being in a safe zone, because everybody can't talk to everybody. Because you talk to somebody, and next thing you know, you see it posted on Facebook, and everybody's looking at you like a deer in the headlights, and they're wondering what's wrong with you. And so the first thing that we have to do is dealing with this period of isolation is we have to identify issues that we may have and be honest with ourselves, but we also have to create and find a safe platform. And where does that come from? That comes from the VA. It comes from our churches, just like this platform that we're doing right here. It comes from support groups that is much needed to help the transition process. And can I just tell you this, that everybody who has done either 2 years, 3 years, 4 days, because if you only did 4 days, then that means you exit out. There was a reason why you exit out, and you may have to deal with that alone by itself. So everybody's going to need a group or a term to help you with the transition, and no one person can do it by themselves. No one person can do it by themselves. And so one of the first things that I would recommend to you today is find yourself a safe platform and a support group. A support groups, a lot of support groups, you can go online. There's so many exercise groups. There are walking groups now. We have veteran opportunities to do things in our community with that's veteran led, where we can do walks with the VFW, and they have so many meetings. They meet together. Listen, I thought, let me just tell you this and be transparent. I thought only people that was part of the VFW were older people. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, I'm just getting out. I'm young, man. I ain't ready to transition to the VFW yet. You know what I mean? It's just the old World War II veterans, and that's just not me. You see them wearing the hat during the ceremonies, and I was like, no, I'm not. I don't need that. I'm okay. Once again, I told you, most of us, 80 to 90% of us ourselves, we tell ourselves that we're okay, and that's one of the biggest mistakes we have. until I went to the VFW and I started going into the luncheons and I met some of the older veterans, older than myself, and then looking at listening to the stories, listening to the pain, listening to the similarities that they did from people who were in the Korean War and dealing with the same stresses that I deal with, and learning how we can learn from each other. And so one of the things that the VFW and veteran groups and veteran organizations give us, they give us an opportunity to share. We need an opportunity to share. That becomes important because you need to be able to share your story. You know, you need to be able to share your story. And what sharing does is you don't hold things in, and it allows you to gives you a release and gives you a sense of self-being and self-help. And so the other thing is that is, and when we find ourselves in these groups, we find ourselves doing more. We find ourselves transitioning. We'll find out what we'll find ourselves doing is, and this is what most of the military social groups and even at the VA would tell you, is that you begin to look at what you've experienced in the military basis on what you're experiencing now and where you're trying to go. And that's how you combine the three. You look at your past, look what you're dealing with now, and then you look at where you're trying to go. And see, this is the transition. This is the train that we're trying to build, because some people cannot get out of what they've been through. They're dealing with their past. They're dealing with a power struggle. If you were in the military and you became senior in leadership, when I got in senior leadership then and transition, I realized that I'm no longer in the military, and it was a transition for me because guess what? Nobody has to listen to you, nor do they care. Well, once upon a time, all of a sudden I had 300 people that had no choice but to do it my way, or because we're in a structure, it's the way the military is. We got rules, regulation, and you don't follow the rules and regulations, you're subject to what we call UCMJ. So guess what? It made that transition easy for me, right? Being in the military. But now as a civilian, you got people who are a lot younger than you look at you and say, I don't have to listen to you. And by the way, and they can give you some other choice words, act like they don't have no home training. And then all of a sudden, and if you don't understand that transition of power, you'll lose your top and you'll say, wait a minute, you're going to do what I tell you. Wait a minute, we're not in the military. Pump your brakes. I'm not a soldier. And then you say, wow, they really don't. And so all of a sudden we have to realize that that was our past. And so some people struggle with letting that go. It's just like sometimes people, parents sometimes raise children, and now when they become empty nesters, they really just don't know what to do with themselves because they've been taking care of children all their lives, and now they're empty nesters and they don't know what they don't know what to do. Well, the military is the same way. You've been conditioned and you've been taking care of soldiers. You've been taking care of having to do something, and now that responsibility is lifted off you. You don't really know what to do with your time. You don't know what to do with yourselves, and you're so used to having to take care of everything. Now, how do I deal with that? And so sometimes people can't escape their past. They're holding on to their past, and they need a platform. They need a transition. And so that's one of the things the support groups do. And then we find ourselves, and the other thing is that we find ourselves in a present time. How do we deal with it now? Now, this is the thing. This is the key, because we can ignore it or change a blind eye, whether it be if we're dealing with anxiety, we're dealing with nightmares, we're dealing with just a transitional period, to ignore it or take a blind eye or say, I'm okay. Right? But we have to, first of all, realize that we have to acknowledge it. And how sometimes we acknowledge it by when we begin to things that bother you and things that affect you and have impact on your life. If you find yourself not being able to talk to people or being in a crowd, then it could be that you're dealing with a transitional issue and transitional problems. If you find yourself being angry or being upset, you might be dealing with some things in your past, or you might be dealing with that transition, and you might be dealing with some issues, and then they're called triggers. And so we have to be able to recognize those triggers to be able to help ourselves, because the thing about it is, how can you say that I need help with this situation and you have not identified the fact that you do need help? It's one thing to always, let me just transition to the church folks. Church folks say, or name it and claim it. You know what I mean? I'm not gonna claim that. You waking up at night, your back hurt. I'm not gonna claim it. Well, guess what? You don't have to claim it. You already got it. It belongs to you. You know what I mean? So often in the Bible, Bishop, they tell us, Jesus said, what is it that you want me to do for you? You don't think he knew what was wrong with you? The man sitting at the gate, he said, what is it that you want me to do? He wanted him to identify his own issues, right? And so we play this game. Oh, I'm not going to name it, but your back hurt and you limping. Oh, I ain't going to claim it. Well, you don't have to claim it because it's yours. But the minute I identify with it, guess what? That means there's a release, and I got this issue, I got a problem, and I need some help. My patience is very thin. So let me just be transparent here. So my issue was is that, like I said, I was in senior leadership, and then all of a sudden I walk into a Taco Bell, and I have this 18-year-old being snappy with me. And here it is. I'm thinking like the logic of it. The logic is, okay, you work for them, Taco Bell, you're 18, all right, and you probably just start working, and I'm adult, you know what I mean? And I've been in the military, had over, 9 deployments and more important things to do than on this, and you're being snappy with me. Now all of a sudden, now you see the transition part of here, and I'm at the counter about to go off. I'm about to snap, about to lose my mind, up in here, up in here, up in here. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait a minute, get your manager right now. And all of a sudden, I feel it. I mean, my anxiety, and they're trying to make it right, and they're making my order. I'm so sorry, Mr. Royster. God, I'm sorry. Let's do this. And guess what? Get all this stuff. They fixed the order, and now I'm in my car with the bag, and I'm not even hungry anymore. Because you didn't mess me up, because my anxiety messed up, and I find, so all of a sudden here, I realized that I got an issue. I got an issue. And I need somebody to help me to deal with this transition, because that 18-year-old in there don't work for me. And they know that they have to listen to me. And so everything I've been through, I need to learn how to compartmentalize it and put it in perspective and put it in the right place and make it fit to where I am now. So I have to take out of my past, deal with my present, and all of a sudden say, okay, where am I trying to go? Because if I'm not careful, I'll walk around here with my old fatigues on all the time that nobody care about anymore, and walk around here like I'm still the boss, because guess what? I'm living in the past. You know what I mean? And guess what? If I'm living in the past, then my future is already dead. I think that's biblical. That's spiritual, ain't it, Bishop? If you're living in the past, that's why Paul said, put those things that are which behind you. But that's what I'm talking about, transition. So this is what we in the military is very becomes vital, is we need to learn how to transition. And the only way we deal with it is, one, understanding that are going to be, it's okay, because we to feel isolated, but also making sure that we have a support group. And that's why I'm so glad that what Bishop and Life Changers are doing right here, because we do have a platform. There is help. There are going to be information where we can get connected to. And so veteran walks, the VA, the VFW is really a good tool, because they often have the frustrations which you dealt with in the military. We also have the other group is called the DMV. The DMV, and they have one in various cities, and you can connect with them all. The DMV has another group that will help you, give you a platform just to be able to talk. All right. Now, the other piece is that if you're dealing with PTSD, and you're dealing with having the transition part, is a lot of times we'll find out in our transition part is that not only we're not dealing with military God, but we're dealing with so many other compartmentalized issues. We're dealing with health. We're dealing with finances. We're dealing with transition. We may be dealing with relocation. You may be dealing with relocation, for example, and this is because you've been in the military and you've been gone, and the military took you away, and now you're here. I'm not from Alabama. I'm from Virginia, but it could be a transition, and then going back home is a either greater challenge or a greater transition because so many things have changed since you have left. And so one of the things that in our transition is we get ready, and this is the last point I'm gonna bring up, and I'll open up for questions. We have to accept change. We have to be able to accept change. Statistics and psychologists say that 91 of people making adjustments, whether it's a new job, new city, new way of life, is the transition becomes hard because they have not accepted change. They cannot accept change. And so change is a difficult thing, and it's not always easy when we understand change. And so we have to realize that we have transition and change from one thing to the next. And the first thing we have to admit is it has been changed. When you say you woke up, life had changed for you. The day, my last day in the military, life had became significantly different for me. You know, dealing with healthcare. That was just a challenge. You know, you can't, back in the military, you go to one-stop shop, you go in there, they give you a prescription, put it in a paper bag. You didn't have to worry about co-pays. You didn't have to worry about anything else. They sent you on your way. And now you got to deal with these prorated insurance rates. You got to deal with prescriptions, and you got to make it a VA appointment, which can take forever. And it feels like you get frustrated. And then all of a sudden is that it's different for you. And so what happens is that we have to be able to accept the change. We have to accept the fact that we're no longer in the uniform, but there is available help for us. And this is, we talk about veterans. And so self-care is the most significant thing that you can do as a military veteran, is self-care. Make it understand that give yourself the things that you know that you need. Now, you know you survived in the military. You dealt with things in the military. What do you need now in this point to make sure you take care of yourself? This is your time. You know, you served well. The military told you what to eat, when to sleep, when to go to bed, lights out, when to be on duty, what weekends. But now that time is over. Can I just tell you, this now is your time. You've served your time, and this is your time. And we accept it, and we have to understand that self-care will preserve us a lot longer and help us with the transition. When we begin to take care of ourselves, give ourselves what we need, understand and recognizing those things, what we needed, and making sure we take care of ourselves. And what does that look like? Well, it looks different for everybody. Self-care, you may not, you know, some of us have gained weight since we got out of the military. And one thing, that was a transition for me also. You know, it's a hard spill to take. I was used to running 6 to 7 miles every day. Hadn't ran in months, right? And probably about, let me back up. It's probably on my Facebook page, but I go back about 6 months. I ran like 1.5 miles without stopping. And I was just so happy. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you be like, you see the transition? I accept that. I have accepted that. You know, some people, and so I posted it on Facebook. And so, you know, I still got my military gurus. They still running 6, 5, 8 miles, you know, 1.5 miles. You know what I mean? But you know what? I'm like, man, I accept it. I'm not running 5 miles anymore. Nor do I have to. You know what I mean? I have accepted it. I have accepted the fact that I have gained a little weight. It's okay. I've accepted. That's why they make bigger size clothes, all right? I don't have to squeeze into anything, shoes or whatever. Guess what? I have accepted it. I have accepted it. And the bottom line is that this is our time and we're going to take care of ourselves. And so sometimes, that's a thing where you go and you see some of your buddies who still maintain their weight or whatever, and they're looking at you like, wow, you didn't pick up a little. It's okay. It's okay. I feel great. I feel great and the reason why you can feel great is because of self-care. It's not about being a particular size. It's about how you feel. It doesn't mean no good if I'm slim and trim and I'm depressed all the time. I'm crying all the time. I watch movies and it gives me flashback. But guess what? I got money in the bank and don't want to go out and spend it because I'm too depressed to deal with it. That's irrelevant, right? Because when you go down to the VA and you go to see our veterans who are in the hospital and who have significant injuries and health problems, you realize what's really important. Some things that we thought was important, maybe not as important before. When you get sick, and I had a major accident when I was in Afghanistan, and I was medevac to Germany. And while I was in a body cast, they told me they had good news and bad news. They told me more than likely, the good news is we don't think you're paralyzed. But the bad news is you probably won't be able to walk without this walker ever again. I stayed in the hospital and I began to think about so many things that became less important, some things that became important. Things that sometimes we take for granted. And the only thing I could do at that moment was look out the window. And I began to just think about simple things, just walking, smiling, and just watching other people walk and just, enjoy themselves. Those are simple things in life, right? And so I realized that if I ever got an opportunity to just make sure I did those simple things and take care of myself, I would. And that's that self-care. It's about making sure you take care of yourself, making sure that you can be the best person that you can be, making sure that you can be happy. And so that's going to help us transition. And the mental aspect of it is so important. We have to take care of our mental health. So I thank God again for this opportunity. I will open it up for any questions that you may have. Anybody want questions? I'm open to help you out. Mm. Mm-hmm. Oh, good. That's a very good question. Wow, that is a very good question. She's talking about being with the family member because they deal with what you dealt with. And so sometimes we forget our children, we forget the spouse who has dealt with the deployments. And so there is a separation and a difference and conflict between the family and the soldier. And that becomes important because you do need that support system. And so one of the recommendations is that one, be transparent with your family and let them know what you're going through. And then two, maybe you can invite them on some of the forums and platforms that you go to. And invite your children to meet other vets and that they may hear and maybe they can understand what you've been going through a little better if they can hear it. There's things that you can do on the web, on classes, and then because a lot of times when we go to those forums, the VFW, we go to the DMV and there are rooms, it's just us as vets, right? That 1%. And so sometimes we don't go back and share what we experience with our family. So they still really don't under, they can't identify with us. So one of the things that, just like what you're saying, is dealing with the veteran there, that he finds there's no support, and my family just don't understand what I've been through. Um, it's a process. So we have to open it up for them to be part of that. We have to open up, and we have to invite them as well. One, let them know what you're going through, but invite them to share so that they can see the experience and see the pain and see the things that you're dealing with. And then at that point, they begin to recognize and they begin to kind of understand just a little bit. They'll never understand significantly the whole 100% of what you went through, because unless they put boots on and go there, what you did, they'll never understand. But guess what? We can narrow the gap and give them a close scenario. We can narrow the gap and give them a close scenario. And one of the things, I'm glad you said that, because me and my son was walking one day, and we went a little hiking and went through the path, and once again I'm flashbacking all over again, and I'm looking at woods, and I'm like, man, we used to sleep in this. And but it's funny because he began to ask me questions. He's like, man, Dad, y'all used to sleep in it? I'm like, yeah, just like that. You know what I mean? So it lets me know that he had an interest. And so we have to maybe spark an interest in our family members and let them be part of what we've been through to help us with that transition. And that was an excellent question, because we forget to include our family in this. And we just deal with it on our own, and we don't let them know what we're going through as well. So that is an excellent question. We have to include our family, that we can get the support that we need. And I know and then there's opportunities also for, and then you're going to talk about benefits for with caretakers. Your family members can be your caretakers as well, right? And the government will pay for them to take care of you, to help assist you in that area. All right, but good question. Is there any other questions? In the transition, talking about the mental health aspect, dealing with dreams and bad dreams or psychological issues. Feel free to ask any questions that you may have, because a lot of times we can. What I love about these platforms is you'll find yourself taking a lot of information back to your home churches. You find yourself taking back into your community and help with so many vets, because there are so many veterans dealing with mental issues, and not getting the help that they need, dealing with their mental anxieties. There are so many, because of isolation, because people they don't know where to begin with the help process. That's true. Mm-hmm. Mm. Mm. Exactly. Yes. Ooh. Yes. That's right. That's right. Yes. Yes. That's right. That's right. Yes. And because we become what we call suffering in silence. When you suffer in silence, and can I just tell you this? It's nothing like mental anxiety. See, sometimes we can deal with the back sometimes because it's measured, it's pain, and there's sometimes. But when you're dealing with mental anxiety, people that can look at you, you look okay, and you're dealing with me. And I'm telling you this, I've experienced. I don't wish mental anxiety on anybody. I suffered. So I retired 2018, and and you know, you can't predict it. Sometimes it just shows up, right? So don't know what caused it, what triggered it. So 2000, I think it was somewhere in 2018, and took the kids to see that cartoon, The Invisibles. What is it called? Incredibles, right? Took them, right, and it was packed. And so the only thing, it was packed, and so we had to sit closer to the front. And you know, when I was a kid, that's when you wanted to sit in the front, right? But I hadn't did that in a while, so I was like, man, we might be too close because my neck was like back. I was like, man, we might just be a tad bit too close, but it's already packed. We're gonna deal with it, right? And y'all seen that car? It's the shooting and pshon, 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 right? So kids had a good ball. All of a sudden, you know, I go back home and I don't know what it was, but all of a sudden I go back home and I'm dealing with this crazy anxiety, these mental health anxieties. I'm waking up and it's like, you know, anxiety, you just want to run. You don't know what to do. You can't explain. You're trying to explain to somebody. You can't measure it. People's like, what's wrong with you? You be like, I don't know. Your mind is about to go crazy and you can't sleep. And all of a sudden, you know, you're getting medication. You don't want to be doped up. You don't want to be dealing with medication, but you're dealing with this mind that even psychologists tell you they haven't figured it out yet. Because guess what? I realized this when I'm at the doctor, they're trying it out for me for the first time. They're trying to figure it out just like I'm trying to figure it out. They're trying to explain to me how I feel. I can't explain everything how I feel in my mind. I'm just trying to give them a snapshot. They say, well, let's try this and let's try this. Some of the stuff is not working. You're still dealing with mental issues. You're crying out for help. You're suffering in silence. You're trying to pretend, walk around every day, look normal, but be normal, talk normal because your mind is trying to tell you to stay calm. And all of a sudden your mind is just going crazy. It's racing. All of a sudden you're up in the night, everybody sleeps. You know, I found myself walking in the neighborhood. I'm like, man, I didn't watch, you know, Trayvon Martin, all these people, the folks about to call the police on me. I'm walking at night, but I can't sleep. I'm watching the family in the house sleeping. I'm just trying to walk because I feel like I have to do something. You know what I mean? It's just like there's no release. I was at a stoplight. I promise you, I'm not making this up. I was in the office by myself and I said, you know what? My anxiety, I can feel it kicking in. I said, I got to get out of here. You know what I mean? And you try to do something. You're trying to tell your mind to stay calm and your mind begin to race. You feel like you're on skates. And all of a sudden, I just feel like anxiety and antsiness. And it feel like, it's just like you don't know what to do. And you're trying to talk. And then somebody can say something to get on your nerves. Your mind is just like, I'm at a stoplight. I'm right there over in Ross Bridge. I'm telling you, I promise I'm not making up. I'm at the light and I feel like, listen, the light is not changing fast enough and I want to get out of the car. And I said, guess what? I throw the car in park. I said, well, maybe I just stand outside the car while the light is changing. But my mind says, Monty, that's crazy. Why would you do that? Stand outside the car. But my mind said, I got to do something because I can't sit in this car. It's just like you want to just jailbreak. This is what we talk about suffering in silence when we're dealing with mental health. You know what I'm saying? You're dealing with so many issues, and then we trying to compartmentalize so many other things, factors what people are saying, and people, how to deal with people. This is what we're talking about. That becomes important. And let me just say this. When we're suffering in silence, that mental aspect is so, I don't wish that on anybody. Because, you know, a slogan came out, I forgot what year it was. It said, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. It was from the Black Negro College Fund. Y'all remember that? And it's nothing like your mind. You know what I mean? When you're dealing with depression, when you're dealing with anger, you know, the mind. And so you're looking for this one pill that they could give you to help. And when that doesn't help, because you got to be careful with some meds, because you become, and this is what my doctor told me. Um, I'm dealing with this anxiety. It's 2:30 in the morning. I'm up, I'm calling hotlines. I'm asking them. And there's like, well, are you breathing hard? You know, slow your breathing down. I'm like, wait a minute. I'm not breathing hard, because it looks different for everybody. So because you're not, that don't mean you're not about to lose your mind. Because I could be sitting right here and talking to you just as calm, and my mind is about to snap. And so one of the things that the doctors told me is that it got to the bad, it was 2:00 in the morning, and I'm thinking like, man, I hope he don't put me in a category as like, you know, dependent or drugs, you know. He said, well, I don't want to give you this because some meds become addictive. And what that means is when you're dealing with some mental health uh, medicines, they become addictive. And if you're not careful, you will not be able to function without them. That's where you have to be careful. That's why these other platforms, these groups, to get out, to be able to self-care, to make yourself better, exercising, whatever you can do. That's why that becomes important, because if you just waiting on the pill to help you, all of a sudden you become addicted to it, and all of a sudden you won't be able to function without it. Then you become dependent on it. And then after a while, because your body got used to it, then that no longer works for you. Wow. And now they're just like, they starting from day one again, trying to get something for you to help you. You know what I mean? So self-care. We have to look at all of these things. We have to look at medications that we're on. And I pray that, and I thank you for your openness, and I thank God for you. And I'm, like I said, I'm just a transparent person. Amen. I just thank God for the platforms to be able to just talk about these things. All right. Is there any other questions? Go ahead. Yes.
Okay, so I'm not in the military, but my husband is. Okay, but I suffer from all the things you just said. That's what I suffer from. Okay, and so my question is, what about like what I know we're talking about veterans, you know, military, but what about the spouses or the family who may be going through or suffering from the same anxiety or suffering in silence or because they don't understand? Like mine is a totally different, you know, thing, but maybe the kids are, you know, going through something because they don't understand the deployment that dad has to go through or mom has to go through, or maybe they're going through, like they don't know what to say, they don't know how to say, mom, I'm depressed, they don't know how to say, you know, I don't know what this means, especially if you're not paying attention. The one thing you're trying to do is just send them to school or teach them or show them or you, hey, do your chores, hey, do this. Or the spouse is like, I have to do this, I have to do this for the kids, or I have to work, I have to, whatever needs to be done. What about, so like, is there any help that they could get, or children or spouses, whomever, that they can get for um, the same, same things that they may be, right, conditions that the vet may be going through as well. So
That's a good one also, kind of with the, and there are programs through the VA and through the VFW for families, family care and family preservation for the children as well. And sometimes, like you said, your 5-year-old don't understand depression, but maybe because they don't want to go outside anymore, you can see it's having an impact. And so we have to understand, we have to, again, do family therapy, and we have to include them in that process because they are suffering also. Like you said, when you're dealing with these anxieties and people think that you're supposed to pick up and be all right, and because it becomes a sign of weakness when you reach out for help. And that's why so many people don't reach out for help, because they don't want to be identified as something is wrong with me. But we're suffering in silence. And so our children suffers in silence. They begin to act out in school. They begin to bully other people because they're angry. They begin to do things. They begin to steal. You believe it or not, you was like, we don't even steal at the house. They just begin to, because they want attention. You know what I mean? They're reaching out. They're crying out for help. So our children are dealing with it, and this is because Daddy and Mama was in the military for some. They're dealing with it, and we are a reflection, and we're spilling off on them, and therefore they're dealing with it as well. And so we're all crying out for help together. And the thing about it is, when we all cry out to help together, we got to make sure that we're in the same choir, because we could be singing different songs. You know what I mean? You're crying out his pain is one thing, you're crying out and suffering another thing. You're dealing with maybe sometimes even more trauma, because like I said, the military taught us to just adapt and overcome, all right, to be strong. You know what I mean? And so now you're dealing with that times 5, because now you're dealing with the children. You're dealing with being the mom, making sure he's okay, making sure the children okay, and then to include to make sure you are okay. You know what I mean? So you're trying to be a good wife, and to him, you're trying to be a good mom to the children, and at the same time, making sure that you're okay as well. And sometimes, once again, you feel isolated and left out. And so we have to make sure these platforms for our children and our family, they are included, and make sure that not only do the veteran gets the help that he needs, but we include what did the spouse and what did the children and the significant other, did they have to deal with at the same time. So we reach out to all these veterans, and if you are a spouse, these services are available for you you as well. So you call the VA, you call them, and get in these support groups, and recommend that you go through them together, so we can understand what y'all both dealing with, because y'all are dealing with two different things, but you're dealing with the hurt at the same time, and dealing with these emotional anxieties, depressions, and all these things. And so everybody deals with things differently in their own way, but together we can get help, and there is help available. So excellent question. That's it. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Thank you. Bless you.
So much. Thank you again, Reverend Royster. Really, really appreciate you. Next, we will have Mr. Howard Gaddis Jr. He's here to speak with us on understanding how to retire and utilizing military benefits.
I talk fast. Can you hear me? So just slow me down again. If I get talking too fast, slow me down. Of course, first of all, it's nice to have all this and to inform people, because there's a lot of people who have no clue what's going on. A lot, especially what you talk about. I'm gonna give you a short transition. But what you're saying about leaving the military? Okay, I had a friend in the Navy. He had a master chief, had been there 40 years. 40, not 20, 40. He had been there so long, his son was retiring when he retired. So he leaves it, he gets out, goes to Walmart, gets a job. He's stacking boxes or something. So, he said, Mr. Chief? Is the chief? Master Chief, Navy, right? So he says, okay, Chief, we need you to move these boxes over here. Well, this guy said, well, I've served in the Navy 4 years. I was over 4,000 men, 3 horses, and 3 ships. So the people said, look, if you don't move those boxes, you don't have a job today. So he quit, and he never went back. Never went back to get his money. So the transition is hard. So real hard, especially people been a long time. So anyway, my thing, I served in the Air Force from 1983 and retired in 2003. So I've been out almost for 18 years this year. Key thing, the Bible what most people want to know is how to get my VA benefits. Here's what nobody will ever tell you. The raters, what they do, when you file for benefits, they go, it's called CFR 38. And you go to ecfr.gov. When you go in for your physical, for your CMP, this is what the Bible they look at. What you tell them, the answers are in this CFR 38. Everybody's system. If you say I have a back problem, they're gonna look at your back and you say, well, I had to bend over 10 degrees this way. It tells you what they're gonna give you. That's what they use. So they're not doctors. So that is the code. So a lot of people go in and say, well, I can't get my benefits. That's because they don't know the code. Even the VA don't know it. So, but that's it. So if you file for benefits, you need to look at CFR 38. Okay. Okay, the first thing you got to do, well, the first thing, the qualification is DD 214. Got to have that. That's what she was talking about earlier with this, the cemetery benefits. Now, the requirement for VA disability, two things. If you don't have a DD 214, some people, if reservists, they get a certificate of service. That's good. You can use that. But you have to serve 90 days active duty under federal orders, under the president, not including tech school, basic training, or get injured. If you get injured while in student status, you qualify. I have a lot of people with that type of stuff. Okay, so once you go, get your DD 214, go to the VA. What you're gonna need, the key thing, second thing, you gotta have this, a copy of your original medical record if you have one. And you can get that from National Archives or go to the local vet, I think you call it veteran office, the county rep office, or you could. The quickest way is go to the main VA and get it ordered. So you get a copy of medical records, and then they get screened, and you go through them and look at everything you have. If you can't screen them, if you ever get a medical record, you can't screen it, call me. I can screen them real fast. It could be thousands of pages, but I can help you with that. Next thing is you got to set up what they call an e-benefits account. And ebenefits.gov, you know about, most people know about that, and va.gov, but they're fading away e-benefits. So all your stuff for e-benefits, that's going to give you a disability rating. If you need to get a certificate for a home loan, all that can be downloaded. Add dependents, change your checking account if you're receiving benefits. So you need those two accounts. So those three things: CFR 38, e-benefits, va.gov. You got to have those. Okay, on e-benefits, of course, just like on va.gov, you can see your pay history because you don't get an actual pay stub for the VA disability. It's on e-benefits. So if you need a letter verifying your benefits, how much you're getting, all that, you can download it. Civil service preference letters, all that type of stuff. Medical wise, if you do 20 years, you're eligible for TRICARE. Some people are on TRICARE. TRICARE is if you within 100 miles of a base, like I live in Montgomery, they'll assign you to a doctor on base. Now, let's say the clinic closed, you can't get in. Well, if you have any VA disability, 100% or TRICARE, you can walk in any urgent care clinic. You don't have to go on base. So if you're away from a base, you're in Alabama, you come here, you walk in anywhere. If you're 100% disabled, they have what they call CHAMP VA. And like he was saying, they can help you. CHAMP VA covers the dependents. So if you're 100%, go to CHAMP VA and they give you they can help you with medical treatment there. If you leave the military, let's say today, and you have nothing in your medical record that you think you can claim, first of all, you don't need to think you can't claim anything. You can claim a whole lot of stuff. You have a 365-day window. If you develop high blood pressure, presumptive conditions, seizures, you can still claim it. Let's say you help this person that ran the 7 miles and you had a heart attack 6 months later. That service connected. So you got a 1-year window, 365 days. A lot of people don't know about that. And I had to help people that have been out 40 years, never knew about it. But it came back and it helped them. 44 years later, you get 100% disability because you never know to file. But you have a 1-year window, 365 days to take care of that. And the average VA rating Most like a lot of people here, if you rate it, I'm sure you're more than 10%. The average veteran is 10%. That's it. And there's only about 8 million disabled veterans. So that's even smaller, but that 1% you're talking about of the population, the average one is only getting 10%. If you get 10%, you can always get more. So that connected 10% disability can cause you anxiety, depression. So that falls into the mental side. Any disability, chronic pain is rated just like PTSD, depression, anxiety, they're rated the same. If your foot hurts, 10%, it keeps you from sleeping, that's insomnia, anxiety, that's the secondary condition. Then you get paid for those. So for us like dependents, if you're from Alabama, you from Virginia? Reverend Royster, you from, okay. It's always different from the different. So you got to go into the website for the veterans benefit in the state you're in. So Alabama, if you have a 40% disability, the kids can go to school, any state school, tuition books free, 5 years. Tuition books. Now, if you're 100% disabled, they get a stipend for 3 years. Now, that means your biological kids, step kids, and you don't have to adopt your step kids. So most people are like, I'm not going to adopt them, but you don't have to adopt your step kids. They can still get the benefits. Now, let's say worst case scenario. Let's just say you got step kids, you get divorced. Well, your step kids are still your step kids, even though you're not married to the mom. They can still utilize the benefits. That's a lot of people don't know that, but you can. So that doesn't stop anything until they get over 23 years old. Then they can't go, of course. Let's say, course at 100%. Everybody knows, depending on the city or county, it's kind of different. You get the no property tax exemption, all that. Um, let's see, over 65, and most people, I don't think anybody's here over 65. Oh, well, you never see. You can never tell with veterans. You never know. So, but you go TRICARE for life. Then you heard about TRICARE for life. If you retire with 20 years, you go TRICARE for life. It's free. So, and then you have a situation where, let's say your grandmother was married to, or your dad or mom, but they got divorced, but yes, he served in Vietnam, Gulf War. I think the range is between 1940 something to 1987. If unfortunately, if that person passes away, this is what a lot of people don't know. This I've seen this happen. You can still get a widower's pension. So a lot of these people living on just their Social Security for their husband who was in the Army for 3 years, you can finally get the widower's pension, provided you don't have a lot of assets. Let's say you got a house worth $1 million. That's not counted. It's money, like you had a retirement. If you don't have that, which a lot of people don't, you can still get that survivor pension. And you don't have to hit the thing that catches with this, that person does not have to have been service connected for anything. As long as they served, let's say 3 years in Vietnam, Korean War, Gulf War, that's all. That's the only requirement. So a lot of people don't know. It happened to one of my family members. 15 years later, never knew anything about it. They said, we can't give you the 200,000, but we'll give you whatever you will get every month. So that is, and let's see, something else I want to tell you all. You have to see if I can. Oh, one other account you have to have if you're trying to get your medical record. I have people come in a lot of times with these stacks of medical records. If you go to the VA and you get an e-benefits account set up, you have to set up what they call My Healthy Vet account. When you go to e-benefits, you download your whole record, and you can take your whole record, put it on a flash drive. So instead of going there and getting these copies, all this information, you don't need that stacks and stacks of paper. I got 1,000 pages of people records. They'll bring it to me, and I'll say, okay, I'll go through it. But I'll just get on my computer, download the blue button, what I want, and I can see it. So I think that's kind of like a general overall view. Now, if you have any questions, of course, as always, you can go on va.gov, and it's kind of, sometimes that stuff is kind of hard to get to, but if you have any questions you can't find, you can call me. Johnny got a phone. So you can call me. I can hear you. the husband's deceased. Uh, Right. Did he retire? Or just got out. He's just separated from service. Unless well, if they were married, let's say if he was, I'll give you an example. That's good. Another good question. I'll tell you what happened. My kid's grandmother, if they were service connected, and let's just say the person, I don't know what age this person is. Let's say the person's 61. I had a girl called me last week or last month with that same problem. Husband served during the military. They were still qualified for the survivor's benefit money. Now she was getting Social Security, but you still can get a portion of that. So it depends on the situation, but yeah. Well, that case, now if he does less than 20 years, it's going to be hard to get anything if he does less than 20. But if he does 20 years, if she's the first wife, you get the medical benefits for the 20-year period. You can get the lifetime medical benefits. So even though he's married to somebody else, the first wife can still get the TRICARE. Okay. So any questions?
I got a question about as far as working with disability. Working with, I had a lot of people tell me that if you get 100% disability, that you still can go out and work. Also, like I had another friend tell me that, hey, look, if you get 100% disability, then you can also you're eligible for a certain amount of civilian disability as well. And is it worth getting civilian disability and not working, or just kind of weigh the odds? And what are your intakes on that?
All right. Okay. The first thing is if you get 100% unemployability, that means say your rating was 70%, but you didn't have enough disability ratings to get your own 100. If you get unemployability, there's stipulations. You can't go to work. Now, you can draw, right, if you get unemployability, you are eligible for Social Security. So as long as you get a 70% rating and they boost you up to 100, now the catch that is they can call you back and reevaluate you every 5 years. So what you really want to do is get 100% total and permanent. Total and permanent, you can go make as much money you want to make. So, but you can't. So the only way you can't work is if you get unemployability. So long as you're not unemployable, you can still work. You can be 100% and make as much money as you want to make. And it's easy to get. If you already got 70%, you can get it up higher than that. You can get to 100. So this more. A lot of times, what happens with people, they can't find different stuff. It's not the primary condition that gets you the rating; it's the secondary conditions. And the middle side, that's the big stuff. So that's what it's easy to get. It's a lot easier than people think. So, okay.
So everyone can hear. When you say we get all the paperwork to send the medical records, like for example, me, uh, I'm here in Alabama, but I first got rated when I was in Pittsburgh at that VA. And they rated me, they gave me a rating, but they said zero for that time being and stuff. So would I have to collect both? Will I have to have Pittsburgh VA send stuff over, or is it just one collection altogether?
Okay. The way the VA works, you could leave Pittsburgh and come to Alabama, and it could decrease you. But if you already rated, most times that won't happen unless it's some kind of way it was a fraudulent rating. So all your information is gonna be online. All the stuff you like, because you got to make sure you save your rating decisions. But if you go from one to the next, it's zero. Of course, they're not going to decrease you from zero. But if you come here, you can file for the increases. But the money is allotted by states. So the bigger states get more money. That's why I had a friend he was in Virginia. Left Virginia, came here, they decreased him from 30 to 10. He got back up to 100 here. So
mine is twofold. One, I retired in 2015, and I think it was a program that started during that time when I was in the Wounded Warrior program. That now, because a lot of veterans think that once I get out, I'm going to apply for my VA benefits, but now you can apply for your VA benefits and have it your rating before you get out, and that is the way to go if you're able to do that, because once you get out again, you don't have access to everything, and then it becomes the burden of proof comes on you. And it was I was able to get off active duty with 100%, and was able to go to the Wounded Warrior program, and was able to make sure everything was in my medical records before I came off active duty. Because other, like I said, other than that, you have to prove everything. The other thing was you had made mention about uh, for the state of Alabama. I know a couple of years ago, Governor Kay Ivey changed it. It used to be where if you retired from the state of Alabama, you would get 100% tuition, books, and fees for school. But she changed that, and I think now you only get $250 towards your tuition and $1,000 stipend. So, and we were able to find that out because one of my friends, who's a fellow veteran, his daughter was getting ready to go to the University of Alabama, and they were having a hard time getting her in school because they were saying y'all owe the $3,000 more, and he was like, no, tuition, you know. And I was like, no, she's supposed to get it free. Wait a minute. And then when I did some digging around and found out that it was changed. But now, if there is a grandfather clause, though, depending on when you got out of the military. So
it's like what she was saying. I said 40% gets you tuition and books free. But now, if you get scholarships, they offset that too, like you're saying. That has changed. But if you got out the middle, if you grandfathered in, if you retired in 2016, you're under the old system, just like the retirement system in the military. So it is, because I had a friend, he thought he didn't get it, and I did his paperwork. His son started school 2 years ago. He retired 6 years ago. But I think after 2023 or something like that, that grandfather clause won't work anymore. But they do have it. You're right. So they have what they used to just give you 20% and you go. It does, but if you get money from everywhere else, they want to see where your money's coming from. So that's exactly right. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for all this information, man. You're putting out some good information. Thank you so much, man. You're well knowledged on a lot of stuff. I'm out here taking notes. I'm sending notes to vets. They texting me. They looking at this online. I'm texting them as we going out, man. All these things. Thank you again. Question for me is that so what if your child wants to go to a school in another state? How does that work as far as the tuition and that money, the money they, like if your kids want to go to like say Hampton University, I'm 100% now. How does the benefits go? Would they pay for that?
Okay, so if they go to another state, if you're 100%, they can still get the stipend, the 13th, whatever that E5 BAH level is, but they won't pay for the tuition. If you're in Alabama and go to Virginia College, you can still get, if you're 100%, you get the stipend, but you can't use any Alabama benefits. Now, another thing is with this Alabama tuition thing, if you haven't paid taxes in Alabama the last 10 years and you're a resident from Alabama, they won't honor it anyway. That's another thing. That's another change. Yeah, so they got it. So if you're in Georgia with is the Hope Scholarship, you can use that, but your kid won't be going to school in Alabama if you hadn't lived here in 10 years, which is to me is kind of screwed up. Because if you're in the military, you're moving around, so that's kind of I don't know how they came to that conclusion, but question.
Well, really, I don't even use a microphone most times.
Let's see how that works.
I use it anyway, just so you. As the pastor said here, there's so much information out here, but there's so much misinformation out here. And in our community, which is we won't even go there. I just use this part. I want to thank all of you for coming. I'm trying to get 100% disability now. I'm at 90. Everybody at the VA ain't there to help you. They're there to get a check. And these kind of forums are so vitally important. And I say this in a loving way, because when I met you over there at the bank, this place should be full. It should be full for the right reasons. Is that, as I said before, there's so much misinformation out there. Now, when I found out, and I don't mind saying it, as this nice lady did, being very transparent, I suffer with PTSD, and I didn't even know what that was. And my friend from the Air Force, which was a high school classmate of mine, and I was telling him about some of the anxieties that you were talking about. One of my own shipmates tried to kill me when I was in my rack, okay, in the United States, in Portland, Maine, okay. But where I'm going with this is that he told me, he said, man, you need to go to the VA and let them check you out, da-da-da. And I said, okay. And he was getting 100%. And at the time when I went and signed up, this little old white lady that was there, who was Trump wasn't even known about then, but she would absolutely be a trumpeter, okay? She'd be a trumpeter. My point for saying that is when I tried to get signed up, everything across the board, they turned me down. I suffer with tinnitus, okay? I got ringing in my ears right now because I worked in the engine room when I was in the Coast Guard, which I hated, by the way, okay? Because it was, all of those almost was trumpeteers in the Coast Guard, okay? But my point as it relates to this information is that I was turned down in every category because of the people at the VA that I was seeing. And I finally wound up getting a black guy who's retired now. And this is important and may help somebody, is that when the guy tried to stab me to death in my rack, and after the weekend, just 2 minutes, my immediate superior called me on that Monday. This happened over the weekend in Portland, Maine, and he told me he was sorry about what had happened. He heard about it and all of that. And he said, short version, but I want you to do me a favor, Ray, because that's what they call you in the service, by your last name as a rule. And he said, I want you to do me a favor. I said, okay. And he said, I want you to not report this to the captain in the hierarchy, because Meredith, which was the guy that tried to stab me to death in my rack, okay, he retires in about 2 years, and he would get a dishonorable discharge. That actually happened. Why? I'm going somewhere. And I looked at him like, you got to be crazy. And I'm saying, his guy tried to kill me. You know about it, and you telling me not to report it so your white friend won't get court-martialed? It actually happened. So at the end of the day, I said, listen, I want to get off of this ship, which he did not let me do. I said, I'd rather go. It was during the Vietnam crisis. I said, I'd rather go to Vietnam. He said, what the hell you want to go to Vietnam and get your killed? And I'm saying, are you kidding me? The guy just tried to kill me Friday night here. What happened? Coming fast forward. So when my black guy asked me, do you have anything in your medical record that will verify that this actually happened? And I'm saying, no, because there is no record. There is no record. And he said, well, do you know, true story, do you know of anybody that can verify this? I was only, even though I'm high yellow, I was the only black guy there in the Coast Guard, in engineering. And I said, no, I really don't. And I thought about it. Gary Brasselet, which was one of the white guys that was somewhat of a friend, and he lived in Bangor, Maine. True story. And I wound up, short version, I wound up going through the directory trying to get a number on him. Finally called 3 Brasselets in Bangor, Maine. Didn't get anybody, left my word and said, hey, I'm John, and I'm trying to get my Coast Guard buddy that. And he called me. That very guy called me, going somewhere, and he said, Ray, you don't know. This is 47 years later. I was in the Coast Guard, got out in 69. So he said, anybody in here over 65? Here I am. So it turned out, he said, Ray, I've thought about you many times and what happened, and I wanted to call you. But I reached out for him for the military benefit, right? He wrote me a solid letter. I mean, the guy that was interviewing me, my black guy, he said he'd been in doing this for 20 years and he's never read a letter that this guy wrote on my behalf. What's your point? I started from zero, and it took me 5 years, maybe 7, to get up to the 90% now. And because of you, and I certainly want to get your name and number before you leave, is that there's so many people out here that have similar stories, or because he told me one of his guys tried to kill him when he was in the Navy. And so I'm saying these kind of forums and this kind of information is so important. And our people suffer from the lack of good knowledge. And what you all have provided here today is just absolutely great. I am also now trying to get on board to go to school, since I'm able now. I'm told by one of my advocates that I have the opportunity to go back to school, and I think going back to school, I think I can get $1,300 or $1,390 or something like that a month. And I'm one of the dinosaurs, unlike all you smart people here. And from the standpoint of being able to use the computer well. So I want to take that opportunity to go back to school so that I can really be efficient in technology, because that's where we are right now. So the reason that I'm getting up is not a question, more of a statement, and just say how proud I am to know that this church has put on such a forum as this that is absolutely needed. And I'd like to see mentally, I'd like to see this, if it was possible, that the churches in the city of Birmingham and around would do something similar to this, because it's well needed. So I would certainly like to get to your number before you leave, okay? I just wanted to say that because I think it was needed.
If I can, sir, before we leave, there is a program that just started. They got an initiative going on right now. It's called VRAP, and they will pay for your school. And it's going through to December of 2022, and you can get your a stipend, you get your books, your food fees, and everything. My husband went through that program back in 2013 when they ran it, and he was able to go to Wallace Community College in Hansville. And so they're starting that up again now, and I can give you that website where you can go and apply for that.
Okay, that's it. That's all our questions. We done. Well, I did go through that same program you going through, the vocal rehab. I can tell you all about that. Yeah, that's a good program. And the lay evidence, you in it now? Oh yeah. Oh, let me tell you before I forget this. If you in vocal rehab, let's say you retired, you still qualify for financial aid, even if you don't retire pay and all that. So you got to make sure you apply for that because I kind of messed that up. But vocal rehab is a good program. So yeah. Oh yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's good. Okay. All right.
Well, guys, we are down to our last speaker. We're gonna go a little bit over 12. Hopefully, everybody okay. Everybody okay with that? Okay, everybody. Okay, thank y'all. Okay, so we're down to our last speaker. It's gonna be Mr. Ray Perry. He's gonna speak on retirement and insurance. That's gaining benefits and things like that after you all retire and learning how to put everything in place. And then after that, I'll come back and speak briefly, and then we will summarize the last two things. We'll have the summary and the closing prayer by Mr. Crump after I come back and give the final remarks after Mr. Perry.
Sometimes it is tough coming last. You know, you gotta all those great nuggets and everything that came, and then you gotta pick it up. So hopefully I can tie everything in. Um, Pastor, man, you really laid it in. Okay, you know that's when you were saying that transitioning. Uh, that's exactly what we all go through. And when you say transitioning out of one uniform, and we trying to look for ways to bring that back in because you don't want to really deal with those civilian people. So you end up finding another job with a uniform. Now I was that guy that did that. I was a bus driver. I was a police officer. Of course, served two branches because I didn't learn the first time. Yeah. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about transitioning, and I like to call it the reset. You know, if you could change your uniform, you could change your mindset. Now, a lot of things that we talk about, so I don't want to like stand in this front of this podium all the time, and I know y'all people who may be online looking, so I don't want to depend on that. A lot of times, when we're thinking about things, we don't understand how much finance plays a big part in this. Now, every speaker we hit on faith, we hit on family, we even hit on fitness. Yeah, we talked about the mental stuff that's the fitness part of it too. But we rarely like to talk about the finance part of it. So, Nikki, you can hit the next slide. All right, so this is the way most of us probably ended up getting into the military for whatever reason that may be. It might have been coming straight out of high school. You know, you talked about being on that team. You know, how many people y'all see we still, even they 40, 50 years old, they still talk about when they was playing on the football team in high school. You know, or we still talking about, yeah, I remember when I was in the military and we did this and we did that. You know, we never let it go. Now it's okay to talk about it, to bring that camaraderie together. Y'all like to hear it? Here it go. He said it was the 5th of November. That day you always remember. And November 4th, when it was my time to get out, I ran. Okay. See, that's how it worked. And he was something, and that's all I heard, and that's why I can remember that today. Okay. Now listen, when I got into boot camp, you know, this is all the stuff that they promised me. They gave me a nice haircut, so I look good. You know, you had to look good. You know, we went shopping for clothes, didn't have to pay no money for it, didn't have to use no credit card. Okay. They put me in a nice hotel. We call them barracks, but there's a nice hotel there, you know. We dined in the finest restaurants. Yeah, free meal, 3 a day. And guess what? It was never late. Never late. You know, you get to work out every day. And here's the most important part. You got paid every 2 weeks. You got a paycheck. All that other stuff they gave you for free. You didn't have to, when you 20-something years old, you didn't have to worry about the money. You spent that money on whatever you wanted to be. You got that nice car because someone lied to you and said, you know, you get a nice car, all the girls will come to you. They lied because that never happened to me. You know, but the military, as they say, the military, if they didn't issue it to you, you don't need it. Well, guess what they never did? They never issued me a coach. They never issued me someone to educate me about money. Go ahead, Nikki, to the next one, please. So when you in the military or when you exit the military, the same financial situations that deals with everybody else, it also deals with you. Now, why are so many people struggling with finances? Number one, they don't get a financial education, they don't have a financial game plan, and most importantly, it didn't come with a financial coach. Go ahead, Nick. So if you look at this picture, whether you're in, out, or getting ready to come out, this is the problem that most people suffer with. They don't have enough in savings to handle an emergency, and they don't have enough in retirement. Now, I know we talked about retirement, but let's think about this. You had to put in 20 years to even think about retirement in the military. And before 2014, you were just getting out. Now, that's when I retired. I retired out of the Air National Guard in 2014. But whether you did 1 year, 4 years, or you did 19 years, you were going out without nothing. No game plan, no funds, no nothing. Now, 2018, they made it mandatory where all of a sudden now they got a plan that mimics the thrift savings plan of the government. They call it a blended plan. But guess what? If you were in before that, you had a choice whether you was going to go to that new plan or you going to stay in the old plan. But anything like when I got out, I'm stuck on the old plan. So I had to go all the way complete. But the government or the military decided, hey, somebody in there said, hey, you know what, that's wrong. We can't send these people out without putting any money away. Okay, next one, please. Here's another situation, when we're talking about life insurance, okay? Every household will feel the financial impact immediately because let me ask you a question. In your mind, what is the purpose of life insurance? Anybody? In your mind, what do you think the purpose of life insurance is for? Take care of people left behind. That's one of the reasons why we get it. What's another reason we think? What's another reason? Death of the person who died. Okay. You know the thing is that so many people are underinsured that they never get enough life insurance. So So if you can look at the bottom part of this, it says the average life insurance coverage gap is 495,000 per household. And I'm gonna get to that and let you know what that means. Okay, next one. Credit card debt. When I was at Camp Pendleton, this is when we actually no, this is when I went to my second enlistment and I was in North Carolina. This is when we started to have a little bit of financial education because people was writing checks. And the reason why they wrote the checks, and they said, well, I thought long as I had checks, I had money. So they were just writing checks and bouncing checks. What about that government credit card? Okay, right? You go deployed and you use that government credit card and you didn't use it for what it was supposed to be used for, and you didn't pay it in time. Yeah, but a lot of us, we get in credit card debt because we don't understand how it works. Because although everything came with instructions, the weapon you used in the military came with instructions, all the stuff came with instructions. The one thing that don't come with instructions is money. Next one. Now, how many people know this? When you look at this slide, how many people you know that's living paycheck to paycheck and feel good about it? Not really. That was just a play on words. You know, working 40-40 plan. You know, you're working 40 hours a week for 40 years and only getting 40% of the pay that you hope that you're going to get at the end of the retirement. Okay. Next one. Okay, so this is my mission, how I help people. Okay, I help them to become financially independent, want them to be property protected and debt free. So I have a program that I use to help people do that. So if you see the link at the bottom there called myfinrayperryjr.com, you know, if you put that in and go there, you can book an appointment with me. It's right at the bottom. Don't worry, you'll see it again. Next one. I'm gonna move a little faster so we can be a little short on time. So I'm gonna let this little video play. This video is a short, about 16 minutes. It's going to highlight a lot of things, and then I'm going to go ahead and close it out quickly. Okay, so you can go ahead and hit it.
How often do you think about money? When you think about it, what do you think about? Where you want to be financially in the future? How much you earn? Your bills, debt, vacation? Do you think about how much you want to save or invest maybe? Most of us think about money every day. It's not that we're greedy and obsessing about it. It's just that our finances touch every area of our lives. Each of us is making vitally important decisions every day that make us either stronger financially or more vulnerable. The fact is, we are each building a financial house, whether we realize it or not. How you build your house, the choices you make, will determine where you end up financially. The goal of making wise choices is to reach a point where your money one day works for you, so you no longer have to work for your money. That's called financial independence. Ultimately, this is what we all want. It's not just a crazy fantasy that other people get to live. It's possible for you. Your dollar is just as valuable as the next person's. You can choose if that dollar disappears or if it goes to work for you. And if you make good choices for your financial house, someday you won't be looking to see how many vacation days your employer is willing to give you. You'll be deciding for yourself. If you don't have a plan and are not intentional about creating one, building your financial house is going to be like trying to build a real house without a blueprint. Not good, probably even dangerous, and I can promise you it will not lead to financial independence. And think about it. Most people spend more time planning a birthday party or a wedding than they do their entire financial future. Failing to plan is planning to fail. Your first step to building a better and brighter future is the same as with a real house. It starts with dreaming, finding a clear vision for what you really want it to look like. When you imagine the future of your financial house, what do you see? Do you want to be debt free? Help your kids come out of college or university without a load of debt? Be able to travel or have a vacation property? Or have enough money so you don't have to even think about it? Dreaming about where you want to be financially will motivate you to create a plan for how to get there. As part of this first step, it's important to discover your financial independence number. It's the most important number in our financial lives, and yet most of us have never heard of it. It's the amount of money you need to have working for you so eventually you never have to work for money again. Knowing your financial independence number gives you a clear goal or target. If you don't know what number you're aiming for, you'll never hit it. And when you learn your financial independence number, don't be intimidated by it. It's not as out of reach as you might think. Once you know what you're aiming for, construction can begin. Step one of construction is the most important part of a house, a rock-solid foundation. A strong foundation will make sure your house doesn't crumble when hit by strong winds and storms. For your financial house, we're talking about protecting your most important asset, your income. It's your income that builds your entire financial future, and you protect it with life insurance. Auto insurance replaces cars. Homeowner insurance replaces houses. Life insurance cannot replace a life, but it can replace an income. Think about how important your income is to your family. If you die today, what happens to that income? It stops. But what about the bills? They keep coming. When someone dies, almost always there are those two deaths, the death of the person and the death of their income. Just imagine what happens to a family when the income stops and the bills don't. It's called a total financial disaster. If there's not enough life insurance, not only has their family lost a loved one, they also face losing everything that their income provided. That creates a financial nightmare. An important question to ask yourself is, if you die prematurely, would you want your family to live better, the same, or worse than they do now? Most everyone says better or at least the same, but if you're not informed, it's easy to make mistakes, which is why many of us have cracks in our foundation that we're not even aware of, which puts our families at great risk. Life insurance mistake number one is not having any or not enough. Mistake number two is having the wrong kind. Many of these policies are very expensive, leaving families underinsured, and they often have savings programs that earn low returns. Life insurance mistake number three is the most common, depending on group life insurance from your job. Many of these plans only cover you if you are actively at work, and they can be amended or terminated without your consent. Unfortunately, most people learn about this when it's too late. This foundation is the most important part of your house. Once you get it right, you can then go to step two, the frame. In your financial house, your frame is your cash flow plan. Most people call it a budget. A cash flow plan empowers us to start telling our money where to go instead of wondering where it went. It protects us from wasting money and making impulse purchases like gourmet coffee and stuff like that. It's not about how much money you make, but how much you keep. Without a plan, we spend more, borrow more, save less, often leaving us with more month at the end of our money. Get it? It can be very stressful. Most people say they easily waste $5 to $10 a day. For a married couple, that could be $300 to $600 a month. Imagine using that wasted money to instead eliminate debt and invest in your future. This can be the difference between reaching your financial independence number or having to work for the rest of your life. You can now see how vital this step is. Take control of your spending and stick to it. Now you're ready for step 3, the roof. In a financial house, your roof is made up of some key legal documents: your will, power of attorney, and an advanced medical directive, to name a few. These documents are critical in order to protect your assets and, most importantly, your family. You want to get a will right away because if you don't have a will, your government has one for you. You just have no say in it. For example, if both parents pass away and there's no will in place, the government will decide who raises your kids, which is the last thing we would ever want to happen. Another reason to get a will is to avoid a family feud. If you don't have a will when you die, you take the risk of family conflict, creating arguments of who gets what when you're gone. That kind of turmoil can be devastating to families. It happens often, and it's a problem that is easily avoidable. Once you've done this, you can feel good about your progress. You now have the foundation, the frame, and the roof to protect and improve your family's financial well-being. Now you can get to work on the inside of your financial house. Let's start on the first floor, which is your emergency fund. There's no escaping financial emergencies. Surprises are going to happen. A broken down car, a home repair.
That was just enough to wet your whistle. Now, if you really like to see the rest of that, hey, reach out to me. Go to my link, schedule something with me, and let's talk about getting your financial house together. Now, when we enter the military, now, as you're looking at this slide, there's 4 ways that we get paid. And this is the way that we, like, if you was working in high school, but this is the way that we get paid in the military as an employee. See, that's why that the check is free. That's why they're telling you where to go and where to be. Actually, Pastor, you alluded to that, but you did it for X amount of years. I did it for X amount of years, and when you got out and go to your next job, okay, it's the same thing, right? One of the ways of taking care of that is to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to become my own boss. So we're going to teach people how to become self-employed. But the challenge with being self-employed is you're just a person that owns a job versus just working it. Now, the other way of really, really doing something that is significant is to build a business. So as you can see on the right side, top right side, that's what it is. You have to build a business that will generate income for you. But the most important part that we all miss is the investment part. And the problem with being on the left side is that we don't make enough money to invest in. But on the left side, you make enough money so that you can invest and so you can live off the interest. But see, no one teaches us that. Okay, next slide. I said I was going to move a little faster. Now, the problem with being with traditional companies is that our money is spread out all over the place. Okay, you got the mortgage, you got the credit card, you got the insurance, but no one ever brings all of that together. Now, what I found out is that most people, they know where they want to go financially when it comes to money. They know where they want to go. They just don't have no clear direction on how to get there. Now, what I use is a digital tool that allows someone. It's like a GPS. but it's for your money. Next slide. Now, we depend on the military to do a lot of stuff for us, right? Remember I said, if it ain't an issue to us, we don't need it. If Uncle Sam didn't give it to you. Now, this is a report that came out, was reported on July 8th of 2021, and it has to deal with USAA Insurance Company. USAA Insurance Company is going to do a $90 million settlement because of defrauding people out of life insurance, overcharging. Okay? Now, we can get into a lot of life insurance, what the difference are and what they really mean. But so many people, because we're not educated on it, or we say, well, my buddy, he's an insurance agent and this is what he does. Yeah, but if you're not educated on how it works, if you're not educated on that, then you're going to and you're not going to have this. Okay? And USAA, I'm not talking bad about the company, but USAA is one of the biggest contributors to the military. Not only was it through the life insurance part of it, but it was also through auto and home. They were charging based off of rank. If you was an officer, they charge you less. Man, you can go to the next one. We're not going to stick on that one too long. Okay, so let's focus on things that you can control. Okay, there's a list there of the things that you cannot control. So let's not worry about, because a lot of times that's what that conversation is. The conversation is, we want to talk about the government taking care of us. Well, no, we don't need the government taking care of us. Okay, you got control of your savings. You can control how you're going to save. What do we say? 10% to God, 10% to yourself, and 10% to your investments. Right? Who gets this first? God. Okay. You can go back. Okay. All right. You got to come up with other sources of incomes. There's ways to reduce your taxes, maximize your savings, saving more, and diversify your investments. What we have here is that most people don't have enough to invest, so they can't diversify. They don't know other ways of getting around. So you can go to the next one, Nick. So here's a few solutions and a few tips, because that's what you got all day long through this whole thing. You didn't just get information, you got solutions. And I'm also one of the ones that's going to give you solution that you can act on, but you can't act on just by sitting there and not making a move. Okay, you got government websites that you was told to go to. It ain't gonna do you no good if you don't pull it up. You got information on retirement. It's not gonna do you no good if you don't call the person that gave you the information and take action. Okay, number one, pay yourself first. That's what I just talked about, 10%. Okay, if things are a little hard and rough, yeah, start with 10%. Just put it away. Put it away in the emergency account. Number two, adjust your priorities. That's called living below your means. And usually every time you get a raise, most people go out and they buy more. They do more. No, still live below your means. Live off a half of what you make. And you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised. There's a lot of money out there that we waste. One of them is cable. I know people say, I ain't giving up my cable. Hey, just downgrade. Okay? Change the way you think about money. Adjust your lifestyle. Number 5 is most important. Okay? I don't care what type of budget you do, stuff like that. If you don't find ways to earn additional income, you're still going to be in the same boat. You can save, but there's so many things out there that you can do to earn additional income. Avoid the credit card trap. It's crazy how you can be in so much credit card debt that you can call them up and say, hey, can I get an increase on this? And they were like, sure, we'll give you an increase. Why? Because the more debt you in, the more that they make. Now, I teach about a rule called Rule of 72. And Rule of 72 is just a mathematical formula that says that whatever interest rate that you're getting, you divide that by the 72, and that'll give you approximately how long it would take for that to be paid off. And of course, you got to set goals and have a plan. It's often said, we don't plan to fail, we just fail to make a plan. All right, next one. Okay. Now, this is kind of funny to me. We're in. I'm gonna end up closing on this, but this is a skit from Saturday Night Live, and they were talking about debt. Hopefully, you can hear it. Okay. Go ahead, Nikki. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Well, I tell you what, we're just let it go. We just let it go and go ahead and close it out. Okay. Well, I definitely appreciate everybody. Dick, could you hit that last slide? Yeah, if you go to my Linktree link, which is a Linktree and it has slash Ray Perry Jr., I have a lot of resources there. You can get I have a cash flow sheet, mainly a budget sheet. I do educational classes, a 12-part course class on money, on how money works. There's a few other, there's a download book that definitely you can download for yourself. It's called How Money Works. I also have one called How Money Works for Kids, which is a guide for parents how to teach kids about money. Did it freeze up on you? Okay, not a problem. Not a problem. Hey, I'm going to bring the host up here for a second. Hopefully, I deliver some value to you, because when it comes to finance, that's one of the last things that people want to talk about. Hopefully, the part of the video that was showed has sort of like awakened your senses on finances and how important it is, because so many veterans, we're good. We got SGLI, okay, Servicemen Group Life Insurance. For those out there online who might not know what that was, we got SGLI, and when you leave SGLI, you go to VGLI, okay, which is Veterans Group Life Insurance. But like I said, if you don't know how that works, you're not going to have it long. And a lot of veterans don't keep that part of life insurance long, because every 5 years it is bumping up, okay, which gets so much that it gets so expensive that you can't afford it anymore. But see, that don't just happen to veterans. That also happens to normal people out here in the civil, as we call it, civilian world. That happens to them too, because number one, they don't know how the program works. Now, see, here's the things that you want to know. One, you want to know how that program works. I don't care what type of insurance agent sits down with you, anything like that. That's the first thing you want to know. You want to ask those questions. The second question is you want to know what type. Right? There's so many different types. People say, well, a lot of times they tell you don't buy term. You got to ask yourself a question real quick. Why do my employer has term, but you're sitting here telling me that term is the wrong type to have? Okay? You want to know how it works. The next two, you definitely already know. Okay, you know how much coverage you have, and you know how much you're paying. You know that. Okay. The last two is very important. When you're sitting down and someone's showing you an insurance policy. Number 5, what happens if I die? See, a lot of times we think that that insurance policy is just going to pay out. Well, if you don't know what all the gotchas are inside that contract, you're going to be missing a lot of money. And what you expect for your family to have, they're not going to have it. And number 6 is, what happens if I live? See, the insurance company and y'all have an agreement. Your agreement is, I'm betting that the insurance company pays out more to my family than I pay into them. So we want more back. The insurance company, they're expecting for you to outlive the policy so they don't have to pay, and they use your money and they keep investing it. Okay? But see, we can always get around to that. Nikki, we still frozen? Okay, no problem. Hey, listen, I had a great time. I hope y'all had a great time. Like I said, you can always reach out to me. You can go to myfin, that's MYFIN RayPerryJr.com. That should be easy to remember, RayPerryJr.com. Okay, myfin, right? Or you can go to my link tree. You can look me up on Instagram. I would love to sit down. Hey, listen, whatever you do, take action. It's easy to go onto my website, book a free consultation with me, and let's see where you at. I got a nice little survey that we do. In 5 minutes or less, it'll show you a handful of ways to improve your finances. Now, if you can improve your finances in 5 minutes or less, I know that's something you definitely want to see. Right? Okay. So, with the host of the most, my friend, I'm going to bring back up here to the stage and thank you and thank all of y'all. I know I got a lot of value, and I hope you got a lot of value. Miss TK Motley.
I will not be before you long. I promise. Where's helper number 1? The helper. All right. I just want to say thank you to everyone. I'm not rich, so I don't have a lot of money. So let's just put that out there. But I just want to give everybody, the ones that I'm about to call their name. If I didn't call your name, please don't feel overlooked. It's just, just want to give people a small token. For Howard. Helper number 2, you're going to sit back there. Minister Charles. Ray. Minister Edmund. Okay, now these right here, military is always very dear to me. I just want to say that I am not, by no means, I didn't qualify to go. Not because I was too short, but just because that wasn't the place for me, especially when they started telling me all the shots and everything they had to give me. I said, that's okay, I'll pass, but I'll support from the backside. So I just want to recognize and see who's here today that is our longest server in the United States military, regardless of what branch. I know I heard 27, 30. Is there anybody over 30? Anybody over 30 years? Thank you for serving. Okay. Who's here today with the most deployments? I think I heard Reverend Royster had 9. Is there anyone over 9? Thank you for serving. This one right here goes to my most seasoned vet. And I know who that is. That goes to Mr. Ray right there with his shirt on. The next one is, who traveled the farthest? who had the longest distance? I think we have 85 miles. Anyone over 85 miles? Just pass my diamond. Helper one, helper two. Thank you, guys. Again, I just want to conclude and say thank you to everyone. We will continue to do seminars, reaching out to help people. If anyone come up with anything or anyone or have spoken with anyone that say they may want us to come to them, if you'll let us know in ample time so we can prepare the travel. Like I said, Mr. Howard, don't know I'm putting him on the spot, but you know, he'll travel too. So you know, if someone have a church that's located in Jefferson County or something like that, they would like to set a seminar, let us know and we'll collaborate, get together and make it happen for you guys. You know, like I said, knowledge is power. And if we don't share our knowledge, what good do it do us to have the knowledge? You know, we have to go out here and help someone. Am I my brother's keeper? Yes, I am. So I'm going to give it over to Charles. He's going to give us some final remarks. And also he's going to close us out with prayer. He's going to summarize the day and just kind of close us out, get us home safely. And again, I just want to say thank you, everyone that came.
Feel like a giant standing beside her. TK, I met TK actually going to school, using some of the veteran benefits that we have talked about. And this is a great forum for us to be able to have, especially by given to us by someone who's not a veteran. But there's a few items that I want to address to you in closing. Some of our medical soldiers that serve in the uniform, Mr.Ray brought it up how somebody said, don't document this or don't tell this or don't do that. There's ways to file for VA claims because a lot of our soldiers say, if they're a medic and they get injured, they go to another medic and it never gets generated to their medical records. And then also a lot of the soldiers that get injured, if you are on drill status or your unit has been activated, even though that injury may not have been service related, you could still file for service related benefits for that injury. I know specifically of a person who he was on drill status as a guardsman and actually was in a motorcycle wreck, put him in the hospital for 4 weeks. He ended up getting disability for that injury because it happened while he was on drill status. So it's important to keep certain things like that aware. I made notes. Another thing, I'm not trying to be long-winded. I'm not trying to redo everybody's talk, okay? As they brought up things, it brought up things to my mind that we need to make sure we hear. So Mr. Ray talked about how he had PTSD from the incident. We have to understand that there's people in leadership, they're struggling with things too. So sometimes a leader in the military can give you bad advice, okay? And sometimes there's a lot of leaders have written off soldiers because that person had conduct issues or got a dishonorable discharge. There is ways to sit here and get around that dishonorable discharge, okay? A lot of service members have been given a dishonorable discharge for something, and I'm going to specifically speak of an incident. This young lady was stationed at one spot. She was raped. She transferred to another location, did the report. The second location she went to overseas, that same person that raped her was now in charge of her. Now that person PCSs to another location. Now Just but luck of the draw, she comes back to the next location where the same person now is even at a higher level above her and is in charge. The young lady got out because of her medical issues. Okay, she went and later found out the doctor was talking to her, and he said, "Look, has anything traumatic ever happened to you?" She said, "Yes." So she had gotten a dishonorable discharge, other than honorable discharge. Okay, and we have to understand that other than honorable discharge will block you and your children so many benefits that you can get. So she was diagnosed with PTSD from the rape. And then that gave them the justification that dictated all the conduct issues that she had as a result of it. So as a result, that changed her, that made them have to change her status of discharge. So what I'm saying is there are a lot of soldiers that are being chalked up to disobedient, dishonorable, whatever. That person may have PTSD or something causing that dictates the dishonorable discharge. Okay. A lot of soldiers, there's one young man that I go to school with, and this young man served in Iraq, and then he was getting ready to be redeployed again. And because of his redeployment, his personal situations at home, he didn't go. He ended up getting in a fight with somebody. Okay. But it all stimulated because he was about to be deployed and he had PTSD from being in an actual combat zone. So now starts this process. Understand this: benefits applied for do not happen overnight. Okay. As you fill out your forms and do things, our children are important because there's some benefits they can get. I think one of them was talking about the different GI Bills. I have a son that is in college. So we talked about how Alabama offers one educational program, but also there's other educational programs too that can actually, the child can be getting paid from both. Okay. What I'm talking about is, say, if a veteran is at 100% disability, that child can get the monthly stipend. I think it's chapter 32 or it's chapter 35. So there's a different chapter that child can go under. Since you said that you were at 100% disability. So, and under that stipend, that child will get $1,500 a month. And then you still can even qualify for other different programs, because like here in Alabama, one program is a state level. The $1,500 a month stipend program is a federal level program. So that child can be drawn from two different programs. We talking about education. Once a person hits, I think it's 30 to 40%, you qualify for voc rehab. So that means that person can go to school, college benefits, and be paid whatever their location pay is in that area. They'll receive full tuition, books paid for, or they get a monthly stipend for that, computer, printer, all of those kind of items. I just made a list of just quick things that I wanted to make sure we are aware of, because a lot of us are overlooking some of these things, some of these nuggets, especially with the soldiers, with the dishonorable conduct. Now, the last thing I wanted to address, a lot of us are on 100% disability or filing for disability. When you're filing for disability, just like I think it was Mr. Gaddis said, you have what's called primary and secondary claims. Okay, you can have the foot problem, but the PTSD, the pain, the this, the that goes along with it. And remember, you can file for those claims. In death, if a person dies, it's what's called a post-mortem claim. All right. So you can file a claim for a person that has passed on. And what do I mean by that? And this is one of the things that I want to make sure you understand. I've got a friend whose father was an Agent Orange veteran. Okay. He came home, had severe problems, all kinds of things. He later filed for VA disability. But this is another important thing you need to remember as a veteran. Make sure with your e-benefits that you, one, file and let them know who is your dependents. Okay? Right now, this young lady is suffering with cancer. She's got several different kinds of cancer all over her body. And when you sit down and research Agent Orange, you see, we have to understand what Agent Orange, Gulf War syndrome, and those of us like myself now from Operation Enduring Freedom, we can pass on things to our children. So that's why it's important for you to make sure you have your biological children and your dependents listed with the VA. It's not an identity theft thing. It's important. So now, reason why I'm saying that is because now that she's suffering with all those unexplained cancers, it's actually service related to her father. And even though she never served, she's now entitled to 100% VA benefits. You see, so now we have, again, there's different like the toxins that we serve, we expose our bodies to. So, and then also, if that person is at 100% disabled and they pass, you can file within 30 days what's called a continuation of benefits. So that way you can continue to receive the VA disability check that whatever that person that was diagnosed or has 100% disability. The last thing I want to touch on is federal jobs. Okay? A lot of veterans slip on federal jobs. They leave out, they go somewhere, and they're like, well, what do I do? There's certain basic federal jobs that you can go and get a job doing. Everybody, every branch of service, even include the Marines, they and Coast Guard, they all learn basic security and weapons. Okay, so there is a police force, a federal police force at the VA. Then there's federal jobs such, I'm retired. I did 10 years and then I got out and I immediately started working for the Department of Army. Okay, my 10 years time, because I came out right in that select window, applied toward my federal time. All right. So when you get out the military, you can buy back your time, or based on how wide that gap of window is, your continuation time will continue on. So now my service related injuries continued on and now affected me to the point where I had to file disability with the VA, and also I did early retirement from the military. From the Department of Army. But what I'm saying to you is, now on paper, that military time plus the federal service time, now I have 30 years now of federal service. So as a veteran, when you apply for certain jobs, you get what's called veterans preference. There's called 5-point and 10-point veterans preference. 5-point is just for being a veteran. 10-point is for disability above, I think it's 20 or 15%. But that puts you that much higher when you get ready to apply for these federal jobs. And like I said, there's certain jobs that, again, at the installation that I worked at, other than a veteran and you working for the contractor that developed the actual piece of equipment, such as a rocket system, radio system, there is no other place that somebody can have with working with a Singar's radio. or working with a MLRS, a multiple launch rocket system, a RWS, M16s. So you have certain skills there already. And there's federal jobs out there that you can apply for, and you qualify for it. And your DAVs, they will help you with your resumes. So before I close out, I pray that I didn't hold you any longer, but those are just some of the few nuggets um, that I have, because when it comes to VA benefits and things that we exposed to as veterans, first of all, we didn't live like others. So it's hard for you to expect others to understand what you're going through. One person in the audience said that she is dealing with PTSD and all the things from her husband's service. Again, that goes back to where it's important to get your benefits and get your dependents involved. Because I don't know right now of a claim that she could file, but eventually it may become that eventually. Okay. But if she's never been put in the system through va.gov and e-benefits, then you've cheated that. Oh, and one last thing, GI Bill. A lot of people don't know, from the date of your discharge, the date of your ETS, you have 10 years to use it, or you have to transfer it to your dependents, or you lose it. I wasn't told that, and I lost mine. All that money just given away. Veterans, we had power. We chose to serve. We have to remember that just because you took the uniform off, you still have the uniform on inside of you. And you as a veteran still have power. You still can serve your country. Remember that when it comes time to voting and electing officials. It's kind of hard for you to sit here and expect someone who doesn't live like you, who never served like you, to expect them to understand what you and your family are going through. Our president is talking about maybe downsizing this in Iraq and sending troops here, sending troops there. Remember that when a politician comes to ask you for your vote, is he willing to send his child over there? My son was in here a while ago, and that's one of the things I'm saying. We have power. Again, is there any questions that anybody has of me before I close out in prayer? Again, I'm sorry if I seem like I got up here and tried to rehash everything somebody did, but that's just basically what I'm trying to do. Summarize, make sure you don't have any questions. And if you're here in the audience, if you didn't have any questions, have any concerns or whatever, get with one of the people that spoke, myself. You can get with TK, and we'll be glad to help you. If I can't help you, I'm one of those that if I can't find the answer, I'll go whatever we can to find the answer if I don't have the answer. So at this moment, let us bow in prayer. Almighty and Heavenly Father, we want to thank you for being able to come here as your people under one roof and also under the medium of social media and be able to discuss issues that your people have, oh Lord. Father, we have been a soldier here in man's army. And Father, some of us are soldiers here in your army as children of God. So Father, we want to be able to take these same values and ideas that we've had and use them as soldiers of your army and spread them across the world. We pray that we've been able to help someone with so many of the different nuggets that we have placed out here, be able to help them with their own personal issues and personal struggles, and help them to understand that they are not alone. That not only do they have those of us that are willing to be advocates, but also, Father, they have you as the most great and most highest advocate of all, oh Lord. Father, we just thank you. We thank you for your son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross. And Father, we pray upon each and every person that's here in person, each and every person that is virtual, that your grace and mercy will continue to shine upon us, and that you will lead us and guide us to our homes again safely. Oh Lord, we just thank you and we just praise your holy name as we close this out. As your humble servant, we all pray in Jesus' most holy and precious name. Amen. Again, we want to thank you for coming out.